Are we ready? Good morning!
Good morning!
Good job, everyone. Good to see you this morning. It's a beautiful fall day. Lots of wonderful gold and orange colors on the way here this morning. Was it everyone's noticed what a beautiful drive to church today? So thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us online, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
I don't remember the last time a church fell, or Halloween fell on a Sunday. But I have some goofy Halloween jokes for you. Are you game?
We're game.
So they're kind of riddles. Who did Frankenstein go trick-or-treating with? His ghoul friend. Okay. You're going to catch on to these, I'm sure. Which Halloween monster is good at math?
Count Dracula.
Yeah, I heard you say Count Dracula back there. Count Dracula, exactly.
Come on, speak up, Linda.
Where does Dracula keep his money?
His goal?
Blood bank.
Blood bank. Good job. Point for Joe. All right. Why didn't the skeleton go to see a scary movie? He didn't have the guts.
Oh, good one.
Yes. What is a monster's favorite Shakespearean play? Romeo and Juliet.
Oh.
These are kind of low, aren't they? Okay. Let's see. What do skeletons order at restaurants? Spare ribs. Spare ribs. What is a vampire's favorite fruit? A nectarine. Very good. Okay. And what's a ghost's favorite dessert? Ice cream.
Oh.
Ice cream. Yes. And I just like this quote. I think it's Irma Bombeck. The best part about Halloween is that the cobwebs in my house look like decorations. It's true. It's true. All right. Good to have you here today. You all know the ropes. There's masks and sanitizer on the back table if you want something like that to feel more comfortable. We're so grateful to have Avalon 9 with us today. Blaine and Dave Clutter to make some beautiful music for us. Let's thank them for being here today. Wonderful. And we'll begin to think about going into prayer. We always start with prayer. So I invite you to bring into your mind all those people, situations that you are lifting up in your thoughts, holding the high truth for. Those of you listening in online, you can send prayer requests anytime. UnityDelawareOhio.org, our website, has a prayer request tab right there. Comes right to the church where it's held in confidence. So let's begin to think about that as we listen to a prayerful song Linda and Dave are going to do called Open Wide My Heart by Lisa Ferraro.
Do sing along. Open wide my heart. 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 Open wide my heart.
Invite you to close your eyes, become even more centered and still, and even more receptive to that presence within you, that power we call God, which is renewing, healing energy, which is peace, which is freedom, which is abiding love, a power and presence that is with us always. As we breathe in and out, we are aware of our deep connection with that presence of love within us. We draw from it like a wellspring. It fills us with energy, with steadying peace, with an awareness of who we truly are at depth. We are one we are open to the guidance that comes from that wellspring in us, that word in our minds and that feeling in our hearts of what is ours to do, of how we are meant to live, of the great possibilities for our becoming. We are wide open to receive from that deep source in us. We are ready to receive that flow of renewing life. Whatever challenges we are facing, whatever discontent or dis-ease, that healing power of God is flowing through us always. We affirm that truth for all those in our community this morning, for living beings everywhere. Not one of us is separate from the power and presence of God that makes all things possible. So we affirm this high truth for ourselves, for beings everywhere. We affirm God is guiding us in this moment and through all the moments ahead of us, filling us with that renewing life, that unfailing peace, that enfolding love at all times and all places. Thank you, God, for your unfailing presence with us now and always. Amen. All right. Well, Linda and Dave are going to do a favorite old song. I haven't heard it in a while, and I love this song by Pete Seeger and Ecclesiastes. I guess he's in there too. And you might want to join in on the chorus. It's so familiar.
Everything turn
heard that in a while. It's a good, good song. We used to do that with the bead people, didn't we, Joe?
That's right.
All right, thinking about faith today. I took as my title, Faith is a Verb. I really just recently read and really enjoyed a book by Sharon Salzberg. She titled it as Faith, and she talks about it as really, we really need to think about faith as more of a verb than a noun. Because we have this sense of faith, at least I have through much of my life, as a fixed thing. You either have or you don't. You know, have you got faith? You have it or you don't. So as a noun, you know, as kind of a fixed and definite thing, but and we often don't examine it too much. What kind of faith? Faith in what? You know, we often don't think a great deal about that. We assume we all know the same thing about what we mean by faith. So it's sort of vague, it's sort of unexamined, kind of a fixed thing. But none of that is really our actual experience of faith. I think most of us know from our own personal experience, our faith now is not the same as it was a decade ago, 20 years ago, or the faith of your childhood. It's changing. It's all the time. It's always shifting. It's always a dynamic thing. It really is more like a verb. Salzberg suggests we spell it F-A-I-T-H-E instead of faith, without the E, kind of like breathe and breath, to kind of accentuate the idea that faith is a very active thing, very dynamic. I think challenging times like we've been through in the last year or two, that can kind of rattle our sense of our faith and what we believe in, what our sense of things are. And so it's a good time, I think, to reflect on what is your faith right now? What does that mean to you? I like, Salzberg has a very basic definition of faith, which I like a lot, brings it up close and practical, that faith is a sense of possibilities. Faith is a sense of possibilities for yourself, for your life. And that's something that shifts a lot in our lives. Would you agree? There are times in our lives when we have a rich sense of possibilities. We're in a becoming process, and who knows what the limits are of what we can become. And there are other times, not so much. Not so much. It's always kind of shifting. Salzberg, in her book on faith, she explains from her background, she's a Buddhist practitioner. And so in Buddhism, her faith is based on the groundwork of that sense of possibilities. The groundwork of that faith is on the possibility of cultivating that same Buddha nature that the Buddha had. In Siddhartha Gautama, who became enlightened, he realized this higher potential for himself and for all others. And he shared that and taught that everyone has, as a gift of creation, has this higher nature, this higher selfhood, that in Buddhism they would call Buddha nature, and that this is possible for all beings to cultivate that and to come up higher. The possibilities were much vaster, and people responded to that and were inspired by that. He taught back in the 5th century BC. And in Christianity, we really have a very similar concept, certainly in unity Christianity, that each one of us has a higher selfhood, and we talk of it as our Christly nature or our Christ spirit. The groundwork of it goes back to the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, who realized and demonstrated and taught about this higher possibility for all of us. And we believe very strongly in unity that he taught this was possible for us all, not just him. That through communing with God in us, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your God in secret. And he said, put that first. If you seek first that connection with God, all the rest will be added. Seek first the kingdom. He said, these things and greater things shall you do. Higher possibilities for all of us. That's the groundwork of our faith in Christianity. It's very similar to that idea in Buddhism of there are great possibilities for who you can become. For how it's possible for you to move past limitations or challenges in your life. So So how is the state of your faith in higher possibilities for you, who you can become, who you are becoming, what your life can be like. The possibility of greater peace, possibility of greater freedom, freedom particularly on the inside, freedom from misery-making thoughts, from worries and anxieties and dreads that can get a grip in our minds and feel so intractable. We can feel sometimes like they're the reality and they're never going to change. What's your sense of the possibilities in that shifting, in not being overcome by those, in being able to overcome such limiting conditions or thoughts about conditions? I think often it's always a shifting thing, faith with an E, always a shifting thing, and sometimes it feels like our faith needs to be rekindled somehow, and it can be helpful to think about what has kindled your faith in the past, to reflect kind of on our faith history. So I really believe it's when you have a sense of possibilities, when something, you come upon a teacher or a set of teachings or book or something, somebody models something for you and you get this sense of more being possible for you. These are stellar moments in a life. These are profound moments, and we remember them, and often we can't help but share them. I do that a lot. It's kind of a part of my job, kind of remembering some of those stellar moments, those moments of inspiration, because they're the things that keep our faith kindled somehow. And we can often go back to them, remember that again. What was it that gave you this sense of great possibilities for yourself and your life? Salzburg talks about, explains that in Buddhism, they have different words for faith at different stages, different levels of faith in a way. And these moments where we're touched by something, we're inspired with a new sense of possibilities for ourselves, they talk about that kind of faith as bright faith. Bright faith. And it's energizing. And that's the great thing about bright faith, is it really kind of energizes you in your becoming process, in your growth, in the deepening of your understanding and of your creativity, all of that. There's an energy to bright faith. And we all have experiences of bright faith. Sometimes it's often in our lives. Sometimes it's just a few. I'll explain one of mine, or share one of mine, which I've probably done before. You've probably heard this bright faith story before. And I hope it'll remind you of some of yours. Moments in your life where you stumbled on something, read something, heard something, saw something that made you realize there's more for me. There are more possibilities. I went through in early adulthood, my early 20s. I wanted to live in a big city. I lived in a small town my whole life, so I went off to live in New York City. Had a couple friends living in Manhattan, and went there. And very different from the small town in Ohio I grew up in. And it was very stressful. One of the things that was interesting is I had very little memory of those early weeks. It was so stressful. I read books and then couldn't remember anything of them later. It was just, you ever go through a time like that where you're just so involved in the stress of the moment? That's all you can do is kind of stay with that. Finding a job, finding an apartment in the city, wandering around lost on Manhattan streets, or subway platforms and so on. And so it was a very stressful time. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of kind of daily anxiety and worry and fear. And then one day on my lunch hour, I was working at an advertising agency in Midtown Manhattan, and I went by a bookstall on a sidewalk and stumbled upon a copy of Lessons in Truth. It was like sticking out. It was sticking out at me. Do you ever have a book sticking out at you? It's just, it's like practically fell in my lap. Well, Lessons in Truth is like, it's a book I grew up on. It was on my mother's shelf. That's a classic Unity text. It was so, a little divine nudge, a little reminder of your Unity roots. Get back to that. Get back to that. We get nudges. See, the hand of God is always in these bright faith moments. The hand of God is always there. Somehow it's built into the fabric of creation. Little divine nudges, just when we need them. Just when we need them. We'll stumble on something. Somebody will say something. We'll hear about a class starting, or a lecture, or an online course, or whatever it might be. and something will click. It's for me. That's for me. I looked into Unity in Manhattan then, and I found there was a Midtown Center blocks from my office. I could walk to it. They had a noon hour meditation. And I went there, and the associate minister who was running that, I did such a nice job with it. It was so deeply relaxing. I left that meditation with a greater sense of peace than I'd felt maybe ever. And I thought, I want more of that. A sense of greater possibilities. I could get that. I could get more peace. I could do that. And then I went to church at Lincoln Center, where the wonderful Eric Butterworth was the minister in that era. How many of you remember Eric Butterworth? Author of Discover the Power Within You, in our library out there, no doubt, and many other books. He was a light, and Lincoln Center was a big event on Sunday mornings at that time. And I began to feel this energizing, bright faith, which part of what comes with it is that you start gobbling things up. I'll take that book. Oh, that looks good. And you start kind of soaking it up, soaking up the text, soaking up the lectures, the messages you're hearing, beginning to pray, meditate, working on that a little bit. And as I did that, the negativities began to be subdued or supplanted. And you don't really know what word to use for these thoughts. Thoughts are such ephemeral things. It's really, if you think about it, when we're in the grip of them, they seem very intractable. I will always feel this way. But in fact, they're very ephemeral. They can be kind of crowded out of the way and forgotten. They can be shifted and changed, and you'll feel very different the next day or later this day. Would you agree? Their thoughts are very ephemeral, but they can be very gripping and intractable also. But I began to realize they can be shifted. I can begin to shift my mind. It was empowering. So a wonderful experience of bright faith. But of course it didn't last. And that's the thing about bright faith. It never lasts. It has to be cultivated. It has to be taken to the next level. It has to be tested in your own life. How do I work with this so that my faith is more enduring? And Buddhism talks about that as verified faith. Verified faith. So I thought we will maybe take that one up next week. But I would invite you to think about the times in your life where you've experienced this kind of bright faith. What were the senses of possibilities that brought to you? Who was the model, or what was the channel of that coming to you? To reflect on that. What is the sense of possibility you want to experience more now as your faith is used and stretched and breathed in and out as the active, changing thing it is? We're growing at all times, and our faith is always shifting and changing, and there's always the hand of God at work in it, guiding us, nudging us, providing models and ideas. And often it's through each other. Would you agree? We are in this together, and we are meant to inspire and support one another. And there's a remarkable guidance system at work by which we hear things, we see things, we see models, we read words, or we hear words that will remind us of just the step we need for our next sense of greater possibilities and how we can unfold more fully in that direction. And there is no limit to it. What are the limits of the possibilities for any of us? We don't know. We don't know. So let's close. Let's take that into a moment of prayer for just a moment and affirm this high, high truth. Each one of us is God-guided from within, gift of creation. We are being guided moment by day and by night in the path of our unfolding, the realization of the greater potential that is within each one of us, without exception. Each one of us, God-connected, born for a purpose, living to fulfill the great possibilities of who we are and what we can become. So we are alert for God's guidance. We are grateful for it. We are ready to breathe our faith into a sense of greater possibilities day by day. Thank you, God, for your unfailing presence with us, now and always. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, we're going to have another song before we go to announcements and such. And Linda and Dave are going to do a wonderful song. It's a familiar one you'll know too. Put a Little Love in Your Heart. Jackie to Shannon. Wonderful. Thank you, guys.